And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Addy Adakin Skywalker, YouTube's chosen one. I have a very special guest with me today, a somatic sexologist. Pyasa Neko Siff is originally from the United States. And to be honest, Pyasa, I don't really know anything about sexology. So could you fill us in? Because you were just on an island, right?
I've been on many islands, but at the moment I am in Costa Rica.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I'm in Costa Rica. I got stuck here after having a retreat down here in Costa Rica, and now I cannot go back to Ecuador where I actually live. But it's fine with me. Life is amazing. And in answer to your question, sexology. So, sexology or sexologist really means like somebody who studies sex. And I am a somatic sexologist. So, somatic, soma, meaning of the body. So, I don't really just sit around and talk with my clients. I guide them in or lead them in hands on experiences to help them learn more about their own body and their own sexuality and their own needs through the hands on experience. But I do talk. I do talk with people for sure.
Okay.
You know, there's dialogue.
What what got you into that originally? And is that your full-time gig as well?
Well, I just added something new recently, which is distributing a frequency, a microcurrent frequency device that I feel is going to help raise the vibration of the planet. But that's another story, which we could get into if you want to hear. It's not something that I intended to do because my full-time work is as a somatic sexologist. And what got me into that? Well, I would say that my own personal history with trauma, with sexual trauma, and growing up in a really dysfunctional world around sexuality is probably what got me into that. You know, it really got me interested in my own healing. And then I worked as a tantric therapist for some time in a women's temple in the United States. And there was a woman that I had met there who started to go to the Institute for Advanced Studies in Human Sexuality. And it really piqued my interest. I thought, you know, I really want to know more about this, you know, because I was kind of winging it. I was bringing in a lot of I had already been certified as a yoga instructor and a massage therapist and been studying Tantra on my own and practicing with partners. But, you know, I really wanted to take it to the next level. And it's just continued on since then. It's you know, now it's been a lot, you know, my current training where I really continue to educate myself about things is really around trauma. So it's not just talking about sex, but talking about our conditioning and our behaviors and what we've inherited from our ancestors and society. Yeah.
And you mentioned tantra therapy. Could you explain what that is? Because I actually don't know what that is.
So tantra literally means to weave or to join together. And tantra really is a tradition that comes from India. And I have to say that I'm not an expert in tantra. It was something that I was doing many, many years ago. And, you know, there's a lot of like neo-tantric therapists. And I would have to say I was one of those. It was more working with sexuality and sensuality. And recognizing it, you know, sexuality as something to not have shame around, to be able to explore that. And so, you know, really helping to awaken that and hold presence for other people's sexuality through hands-on contact. But I cannot claim to be a good, it's not something that I claim at this time. That's not really what I do.
Sure.
And sometimes when I get interviewed, people, even though they've looked at my book or they've asked, oh, here's Pyasa, she's a tantric therapist, but no, I don't claim that. I like to stick more with a somatic sexology. Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. I was just wondering what it was. So yeah, that definition definitely.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, it's a discipline. It's a discipline which doesn't just have to do with sex. Actually, I think I know a lot more about tantra now than I did back then, but I still kind of steer away from it also because it's, to me, there's a lot of commercialism around it, and it's just not my area. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched your interviews with Jeff Berwick, which was the long one, and then your shorter one too. I can't remember the interviewer's name, but both of them were really interesting, especially your longer one with Mr. Berwick. And that's actually kind of how I found you was the it's called Anarchapulco, right? In Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah,
Anarchapulco.
could you explain what that is?
Man, Anarchapulco is amazing. I just feel incredibly blessed that somehow I got invited to become a speaker there and to share some workshops. So Anarchapulco is an anarchist gathering that happens in Mexico, in Acapulco. So hence Anarchapulco. And, anarchy, so many people believe that anarchy is about just chaos and let's just fight and fuck the government, right? But anarchy really means, the true definition, and the one that I go with, is about self-governing. It's about sovereignty. And it's also, that includes self-responsibility. So if we really want to have, kind of break out of the control system that we are in, we need to be self-responsible. It's not going to work if we all just rebel. We need to be responsible. So, for example, like this year's theme. So this year was my second year speaking there, and I was on the main stage. And the theme was evolve. And I think that was really beautiful that the organizers, Jeff Berwick actually is the originator of that whole conference. And people come from all over the world. So evolve, was the theme for that. And I thought that was amazing because they are really changing the way that we look at anarchy. And it's starting to spread and to build. There's also a lot of what are called anarcho-capitalists, that come together. And Jeff is a big cryptocurrency kind of guru. He has something called, I forgot. He advises people around cryptocurrency. I might remember what the name is.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. And you were there just this year, is that right?
2 years in a row.
2 years. 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
This year I was a main stage speaker, and the year before that I was just on a smaller stage and sharing a workshop.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm gonna try to go one year. Because it looks like a really interesting conference. And even if I don't go, it's a great kind of area to find really, really interesting people. If you go to their website and see what they're all about. And how long have you been doing this somatic sexologist work now?
I guess about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's evolved a lot over time. It's the work, the field that I'm working in. I was originally trained at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Human Sexuality as a sexological body worker, right? And so that was kind of like the frame and the foundation for this work. But I feel like it's a way for many of us who went through that training to then go out and continue to gather our own tools. It's like it's up to me to continue my own studies, which, as I mentioned before, personally, if you start working around sexuality, you realize that you better be prepared to work with trauma, because there's so much trauma on through our conditioning and through our own personal experiences. So, I bring in shamanic techniques. I bring in trauma, support through my studies in trauma and my training in trauma. I talk about intimacy and connection and communication. Nonviolent communication is a tool that I bring in to help people learn how to better communicate with each other, so that we can identify our feelings better, so that we can have empathy and be able to connect better together and understand each other more. So I think it's all about making the world a better place.
What does a sexological body worker do?
Okay, so sexological bodywork is all about, I'm always trying to break it down into really clear concise wording. It's a lot about discovering what our needs are and learning how to ask for it. Because so many of us were raised in cultures where we are, here to serve. We've been conditioned to receive our pleasure through somebody else's pleasure, right? And we've been conditioned to believe that our own needs and desires for pleasure are selfish. So I can give you a little breakdown on that if you want me to explain a little more.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm a baby and I'm born and I'm, getting taken care of and people are changing my clothes and people are maybe cutting my hair or they're feeding me, I learn at one point that I need to go along with somebody else's agenda in order to make them happy. So maybe I don't like having my clothes changed or my hair cut, and I try to resist that, right? The person who's caretaking me, despite their desire to, or despite their best interest, of course, their interest in my best interest, right? They're just trying to take care of this little baby. But maybe I don't want to be touched in that way. I don't want my hair cut, things like that.
I remember that one.
Right? Most kids don't want that or take a bath. How about that? So
I don't remember that one.
No? Okay. So, I might struggle and resist against it. And after a while, I learned that if I just go along with what they want for me, I'm going to make them happy and then I'm happy. So that would be what is called the indirect route to pleasure. My direct route to pleasure is through my own experience of reaching into the world and receiving what I want. So what this does is it's basically a brainwashing. It's a mind control that teaches us, and it plays out later in life, where we just go along with somebody else's agenda. Like we forget how to say no. We forget what our own boundaries are and, believe that we're selfish or whatnot to say no. Maybe somebody asks me for something and it's just not really in my best interest at that time, but I'm a perpetual people pleaser now. So I'm just going to say, okay, yes. And in my opinion, this is not serving anybody. If we can't do something wholeheartedly from the heart, right? It's not really going to serve anybody. So when we just go along, it's not that. So
do you think that applies to everyone equally?
What's that?
Well, I don't know if you're still talking about like just the differences in pleasure for others and pleasure for yourself and how you think about that.
Well, both routes are good, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with either route. It's just when our neural networks only know how to go in one direction. It's when I only know how to find pleasure or satisfaction in life by pleasing other people that it becomes a difficulty. So back to what is some sexological body work, there are many different practices that I use to help people really get into their own body, become aware of their own sensation in their body, become aware of what their feelings are, which many of us don't even have the language for. So often I'll say to a client, how do you feel? Oh, I'm good. Okay, well, what's good? Okay, like, how do you feel, right? There's certain categories of feeling. I feel happy, I feel excited, I feel angry, I feel afraid, and then there's subcategories of these different feelings, right? So in my opinion, and part of my work is helping people to expand their vocabulary around feelings. And this is what is eventually, where I'm leading here, is when we cultivate these skills and we really get into the body and we can communicate, that is what's going to lead us down to what we think about with sex, like sex. We can actually have good sex now. And I think the world needs better sex and more orgasmic humans. And if we're just going along with how somebody else likes to have sex and we put aside our own needs, then it's really not serving anybody. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
So
Okay.
are you trying to increase, or maybe not increase, but strengthen the connection between the mind and the body?
Absolutely.
You are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And yeah, like, and also to really tune into sensation in the body. So, you know, I think we all have an internal guidance system, but so much of it is skewed because we're actually totally in the head and not much in the body, right? So when we start to tune into our bodies and get our internal guidance system online, we're actually being led by our own, basically, intuition, our gut instinct. And this is, you know, something that I think will help to make people better, you know, more happy and make the world a better place. And so I talk a lot about, you know, sexual sovereignty. You know, we've been enslaved by our conditioning. And my interest is in helping people to step out of that slavery. And our, you know, our chi, our life force energy is our sexual energy. That's our creative energy. So when I talk about sex, I'm not just speaking about, you know, genital friction kind of sex that most people think about, but I'm talking about in a broader sense, our sexuality. It's our life force energy. And, you know, it's being zapped a lot by so many different avenues.
Do you think that there is a more powerful form of energy than sexual energy?
I kind of think that sexual energy is, you know, it's creative life force energy. That is,
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know. I mean, we can get it might get difficult because we get into semantics, so it's hard to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. The way I think about it is,
Yeah.
say someone says, well, you have nuclear energy. Okay, but if you don't have sexual energy, you don't have any nuclear energy or wind energy or any energy, you know? So, yeah, I think it is. Yeah, yeah, you're right, though. But people can like play around with the words and stuff a bit. But that's just the
Yeah.
way I view it. Thanks for clarifying that on the mind-body connection. And you talked about the gut too, and there's actually neurons in the gut. Isn't that correct?
And
You talked about the gut instinct.
the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve is also, you know, all connected in with that. And, you know, when we experience traumas, you know, I focus a lot on the pelvis, the pelvic bowl. This is, you know, where the root of our sexual energy is being held. And when we've experienced a fright, you know, or we get scared, this is this is one of the first areas where the muscles in our body contracts. So going back to the sexological body work, some of that is pelvic release work. I'm working internally with the internal vaginally or in the anus to help release, because this is one of the best ways to get into, there's layers of the pelvis, of the pelvic floor, and that all holds up all of your organs of your body. And this is all connected to your back and things like this. So where I was started from is when we experience a trauma or a fright, we contract in this area. And so the more that we can relax and expand this area, it's easier for us to clear trauma from our system, to not have anxiety. You know, we're living in a very anxiety driven world.
What you said about holding the tension in that pelvic bowl, as you called it, or pelvic floor, it made me think of this book that I read. It was like a pickup artist book, and this guy was telling about, actually, I think it was Neil Strauss's book, and he was saying that his teacher was like, yo, your sphincter is way too tight, man. You need to relax.
Right,
So
exactly.
that.
Yeah, it plays out in our language. It's like we know these things intuitively. It's like you're a tight ass, right?
Yeah,
you
right?
know, somebody's a tight ass, or, you know, like, yeah, it comes out in our language and we know this, right? But for so many people, you know, this is all scary stuff to talk about.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable talking about really anything that I talk about on my YouTube channel with most young people. But what you said about living in our heads too, it made me think of a time in Spanish class where our teacher was like, why do you guys ignore each other? on your phones or you know, on the bus and stuff. She's like, I went on the bus and everybody was just ignoring each other. And I said, vivimos en nuestras cabezas. We live in our heads. It made me think of that too. But just talking about the pelvic floor, I think that'll dovetail nicely into the relationship between the hips and the pelvis and the jaw. Could you go into that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we can be working on releasing the jaw, and that will affect the pelvis. If you release the pelvis, this will affect the jaw. I mean, our entire bodies are connected and encased, maybe you could say, by fascia, right? And fascia is what, you know, if you think about taking a piece of meat and cutting it up, right, and you see this white layer covering the muscle, this is the fascia, right? So the fascia is what connects everything and holds it all together. So if you have an injury that happens over here, it might affect over here, or
Yeah.
you know, we're tight here. So it's all connected.
One thing I noticed in myself, and I actually came to this realization independent of you, Piazza. I don't think I've seen this written anywhere else. Not that I've researched it that in depth, but I think it was as a result of not only being a student for so long, but also I usually would sleep on my left side. So I'm still working on it, and I still have a slight tilt, like a pelvic tilt, but it used to be way worse. And this was like, it started in college, like towards the end of college, but I think it had been building up for a long time, just because I was like sleeping on that side. And it was right around that time that I started having TMJ problems in my jaw. And it took me a while to realize that the two were connected. And as soon as I started seeing improvements in my hips and leveling out my pelvic floor, I noticed that my jaw was leveling out as well, and I wasn't grinding my teeth as much.
Great. Yeah.
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 So just kind of like hammering home that point that you said there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
can we
Beautiful.
move into, I guess, conditioning? Could you go more into the conditioning? Because I find that really interesting, especially when we're young. Because maybe you could talk about that, and then circumcision as well, if we can get into that.
Okay, let me think where I would start.
Yeah, take your
You know,
time.
our conditioning. So, I mean, our conditioning is basically what we are taught by our parents or by our society. Church plays a very big role in our conditioning, and it affects our belief system, which affects how we act in the world, and yeah, our actions in the world. So our conditioning, you know, it's like some of those conditions. It's like there is truly what is happening in some cases is trauma-based mind control. There's so much trauma that is happening on a global level on our own individual experiences and then as a collective, right? So this creates fear, and we are controlled through this fear. So circumcision, for example, when an infant is so baby boys or people with a penis, as some people would like to say. So when they are circumcised at, when is it again, 7, about,
I
you know,
think
at
it's
about,
8 days.
yeah, like
Yeah.
3 to 7, 8 days after birth, right? Just think about this. So this infant is now laying on a board with its arms and legs tied down, strapped down, and basically undergoes an amputation of part of their body. So what happens at this time? Well, the nervous system, you know, the body starts to pump a lot of chemicals into the body. There's a whole hormone cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol that gets dumped into the system. The pelvis is going to contract, absolutely, for sure. I mean, that we already said that happens. The pelvis contracts during a trauma. Well, and then this trauma is right around the pelvis. So there's a tremendous freeze that happens. And so for some time, doctors believed that babies were actually going to sleep, and it didn't hurt them at all. But what we know now Right. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
What we know now is they were in such a state of freeze that they were completely incapacitated.
They're in
Right.
shock.
They're in such shock. Exactly. So I started working on a documentary. I've been working with a number of other like specialists in different fields. This was a personal project that I've started, and I haven't quite finished yet because I have a lot of things going on. But you know, my inquiry into this became, well, when does that freeze get released? Because the more that I understand trauma, or when one starts to study trauma, you learn that trauma is a physiological experience. There are psychological consequences and emotional, but it is a physiological experience. So
I've
one of the
heard
best,
that the body doesn't forget. Would you agree with that?
absolutely, there's an amazing book, I know you like books, called The Body Keeps the Score. This is a fantastic book to read. And when I read this book, because as I mentioned before, you know, I grew up, I had a lot of PTSD. I had anxiety all the time. I was startled by noises all the time from different experiences that I had had. I just had PTSD. And, you know, like as a teenager, I was put on drugs. I was, you know, medicated to, because people didn't know, especially back then. And I still think they need to wake up now and understand that a lot of the depression and a lot of the anxiety that humans are experiencing is because of past trauma or epigenetic trauma from our ancestors that gets encoded into our own system, right?
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
mind blowing.
this is the growing science, epigenetics. And you know,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. I've worked with a lot of indigenous cultures, and they always talk about that, your ancestors, your line, it's all here within you.
Yeah.
Right. So science just keeps proving what, you know, the ancients already knew. So finally we're starting to get there, and it's actually getting closer and closer. I'm very excited about these times that we live in. But yes, the body keeps the score. It's all held in the body. So my inquiry into the whole issue about circumcision is, when does that trauma get released, right? Because it's going to affect on a psychological level. I don't feel safe around my genitals, the man might say, the circumcised human. You know, I don't feel safe. It's not safe to trust other people around this area. So sexuality, there's some guarding that happens. So I started to really link together and understand why there is literally friction between the sexes. You know, it's happening on a physical level, emotional level, psychological level. It's all in there. And
You're
in
the
my,
first woman that I've ever heard say that.
yeah,
And I don't know,
yeah.
maybe I don't go around asking women that, so don't come and, you know, yell at me. I don't think I'm popular enough to have a pitchfork crowd yet, but yeah, that's good to hear that you are observing that too, because I mean, I don't know, I've gotten to the point now where I just don't let anyone, like, I know what I know, you know, and like if you've had people gaslight you in the past, you know that uh, that possibility, it's you know, it's scary, and it's not something that you want to happen. So I don't know, just having like that confidence in knowing what you know, I think is important. But yeah, just you observing that friction, as you say. Do you want to go into that further?
Um, yeah, when I say that, I mean there's friction on multi levels. There's friction because, you know, when we go into such a state of shock, there's going to be consequences from that, right? There's going to be emotions and anger and feelings of betrayal. So if we don't clear all that stuff, like do the work consciously, which is what I do with my clients, to release these kinds of things, where is it? It's going to come into your present day relationship,
What
right?
techniques do you use to get people to be more aware of their emotions? Because that's something I still struggle with, where it's like, what, like, I don't even know what I'm feeling, you know? And I feel like, or I think that
Yes.
it seems to be a guy problem more so than a girl problem. But yeah, just yeah, what techniques do you have for getting people to become more aware of what they're feeling?
I mean, women are conditioned to be more in touch with their feelings. They're allowed to be more in touch with their feelings, right? Men are supposed to, don't cry, don't be a baby, tough up, be a man, right? So there's not even encouragement as far as the conditioning goes to express feelings. So maybe women are more in touch with their feelings a bit because they're allowed to be, but that's not across the board. I think there's always exceptions. We can't really make blanket statements.
Yeah, definitely.
So what do I do? So it depends on the individual, but I also do retreats and I work with groups. And some of what I love to do with individuals or with groups is emotional release work. And this looks like blindfolded, screaming, crying, getting into the body, dancing, moving the energy, because that energy is all stuck, right, in the physical body. So this is a wonderful way that we can release, stuck emotions. So I have a number of different kinds of practices that somewhat look like that. With the blindfolded and screaming, crying, getting in touch. Also, usually a lot of times I'll start a session off with having my client do a body scan, starting at the top of the head and moving down to the feet and sensing and feeling what is going on in the body, and to start to learn how to identify sensation in the body. And this is really difficult at the beginning. Many people they don't know, right? And we don't even have words for, sensations. And as I was talking about before, words for the feelings. And I loved how you caught yourself there. And you said, well, I feel that I teach people that anytime that you say, I feel like, or I feel that, it's not going to be a feeling. That's a thought.
Yeah.
Right. So awareness, like mindfulness techniques and body scans is a wonderful place to start to start to tune in with, where am I holding tension in my body?
Yeah.
That's a little bit,
Yeah. One thing I noticed that, and I'm not, I know you definitely have a lot to explain. But one thing I noticed when I was starting out meditating in college is that, like, when I would stub my toe, before I started meditating, I would just oh my God, but after I started meditating, that kind of flare up of emotion, it would still happen, but it would go away right away. And I was like, wow, that is mind blowing. Because before, I would stub my toe and I'd be mad for 2 minutes, or 60 seconds or whatever. And then, it's like a cumulative effect, I think. And I just became more aware in the moment, almost without even thinking about it.
Interesting. Yeah, when you said that, I think about anger is an emotion that comes quickly and leaves quickly if we express it. If we don't express it, if we feel angry and we don't express it, it becomes repressed. And eventually we become depressed, angry people. So, when we depress and repress our emotions, that is, part of, from my perspective, why there are so many depressed, angry people on the planet is because, we're conditioned. And anger is a bad emotion. There's certain emotions that are bad emotions, right?
Yeah. They're looked down upon, and you're not supposed to feel them, right? But the way you talked about kind of just yelling and shouting and getting out that trauma, it's very interesting technique. Do you know who Elliot Hulse is?
I do not.
You don't? Oh, okay.
No.
He is he's a big YouTuber that I used to follow back in high school, like a bodybuilder guy. And the way you two think about the body, it seems to me to be quite similar. Well, one book that I gleaned from his channel was called The Language of the Body by Alexander Lowen. Do you know who that is?
Alexander Lowen, yes.
Yeah. Great book. I don't know why, I just couldn't stop reading it. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating stuff. And he would talk about almost people being possessed by their trauma and it being contained in the body.
Thank you. Yes. I talk about, because as I was sharing before, I've I use, I'm not saying I'm a shaman. I use some shamanic techniques, energetic techniques. I work with whatever is needed in the moment. And trauma is an entry point for energetic parasites. When you said that it's like it could be like a possession, there are all kinds of energies, disembodied entities, all kinds of things that exist, and in the information field, in the energetic field around us. And when we have a trauma, it's like there's an entryway into us. Like there can be attachments. I'm taking it off on a whole nother way. And I'm sweating over here. It's so hot here and humid by the beach.
Wow, I'm jealous that you're right by a beach. I've never been to Costa Rica. Why are you there, by the way? Oh no, you said you went on a retreat, but why Ecuador? Why aren't you? Because I mean, your accent is definitely American, and I remember you saying that you're from the U.S. originally. But yeah, why? How did you end up in Ecuador and then Costa Rica?
Well, how did I end up in Ecuador? I had been working with some indigenous people in southern Peru, and I had been spending a lot of time there, and I really wanted to live in South America. I had a drive to get out of the U.S. I guess because I really am into sovereignty, and I felt much too constricted in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so, just looking around, and I ended up in Ecuador. I've been living in a very expat town, so there's a lot of locals, and also expats from all over the world there, who are somewhat, like out of the box. And I like that.
As expats usually are, right?
Some, if they're not just,
often.
drunk.
I should have said often, right? Often.
Yeah. if they're not just drunk, like in a bar all day, on their retirement check. But yeah.
Right.
So I was working with indigenous people down there, and that I want to just to finish up the little bit about these attachments and things, the Kerdos. Working with the Kerdos, they were teaching me that we have what is called a pakpo. This is in English, we would call that our energy field, and that's Quechua, right? Our pakpo. So when our field is strong, then we don't get this entryway. There is no entryway, right? Things can't affect us as much because we are sovereign, really. And when we experience a trauma, it's like there could be a little entryway point, or they say you lose a little piece of your pakpo. And this is a place where then now we leak our energy, and we can get sick, or we can have bad luck, or, strings of incidences that we don't want to happen. So what I'm trying to wrap it up there, but we want to really build our field and strengthen ourselves so that we can be sovereign and not affected so much by what other people think, or what other people feel, or by energetic parasites. This is all very multi-layered here.
I like that sovereignty idea. It's autonomy is, I think it seems to be something that's really important to anarchists. I've noticed. But you run a orgasmic workshop, correct? And an online course as well. Did you want to talk about those?
Oh, it's the what did I call it? The Embodied Love Program. The Embodied Love Program. I created an Embodied Love Program. It's an online program for women, actually, to heal trauma around body image, and to get out of their heads and into their bodies, and accepting and loving themselves. So that's an online program that I have that people can access through my website. I have a lot of programs. I do different retreats, but yes, I have a retreat that I can't even remember the name of it. You tell me, what is it called?
I couldn't tell you, but if you want to email it to me, I can put it in the description box as well as any other links you want. Because I just put your YouTube channel, I think. If people want to go check out Pyasa's YouTube, that is in the description box below. Gotta get those subscribers up there.
I always have more material coming out, so I'm always creating new retreats and programs and things. I just became a mentor on Rise Multiversity, which is an online university. So I'm putting together right now a class for that, which I'm calling Somatic Sovereignty, Rewire, Reboot, Rejoice. And where I'm going to be bringing in some of these things. It's going to be a 3-part class that's just online. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that I'm putting out there this
Awesome.
time.
That's yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. And you also are a big believer in non-sexual touch. You think we should do that more often, right? Especially in the West?
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can rephrase it so that it feels right to me. Well, not feels right, so that I'm in agreement with that statement. So, absolutely, I think that we need more touch, basically. Not that we don't need any sexual touch. I think that's fantastic. Um, and we need more touch, right? We're touch phobic, in Latin American cultures. That's why I think I love here so much, is like we kiss, we have kisses on the cheeks, there's touch, there's hugs. And in the West, in more of the developed countries, people don't really hug each other, and I'm a hugger. I love to hug. So yes, consensual touch is very much needed. And some exercises that I do with couples when I work with them online or in person or in workshops with the groups is touch exercises that are non-sexual, right? To just get people feeling comfortable with touch. Because some people who might have grown up with physical abuse or bullying, things like this, then it's scary. Maybe that's the only way that we know touch, or touch is like a commodity. Like I'm only going to give you a hug if I approve of you, or saying that you're okay or something. But like, just, does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's like an
thinking.
exchange.
Yeah.
It's like an exchange, or
Transaction.
A transaction. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yeah. Yeah, that we can.
I've noticed that too, Piazza, and I wasn't fully aware of it until I lived in Oceania, in the island of Guam, for a year. And wow, I mean, I went from like rural Midwest to there, and I was like, wow, these kids touch each other all the time. I was like not used to it. I was like, oh, because I'm used to having lots of space, and like, if I got touched once a day, that was like, a thing, excluding, athletic practice and stuff like that, it doesn't really happen. I went there, and the kids, they would hug each other every day, like, and not everybody, but it's like, you'd see it in the hallways. And I don't know if the law has something to do with that too in the West, because I mean, you can get charged for battery for shaking someone's hand and them not wanting it. So I think that maybe affects it too.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is touch them physically, and you can go to, you can be charged with battery. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I think I have better words for what I was trying to say before, too, is that, so what you're saying, like you only maybe had physical touch with somebody once a day in the Midwest, I can imagine.
All those Germanic and Nordic people.
Right. So
well, I'm actually half Nordic. It doesn't look like it, but
I can see that in your bone structure. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So
what are you, if I can ask, Piazza? You're very ambiguous looking as well.
My whole mother's side is Russian Jews.
Cool.
From Russia, and my father's side is kind of a mix of Irish and Alsace-Lorrainian, my grandfather would say.
Oh, yes. Wow, that's so
kind
awesome.
of like German, Russian, German, French, right? Yeah. But wait, so
yeah, I interrupted you.
The way it's okay, honey. So the way that we have things set up at the moment is that, around touch, is that if a woman is going to touch a man, say, in a general public kind of way, there might be fear around that being misinterpreted. Is this a come on? There's like this association with it's a sexual thing. Or if a man touches another man, what are you, a homosexual? And there's this fear around that, right? So people are afraid of being judged, you know. But if you look at cultures like India, men will walk down the street holding hands. Are they gay? Maybe, maybe not. Who cares, right? But here we have this conditioning that this kind of touch, like touch is for sex, right? So if we touch out of that context, what does it mean? So yeah, I would like to bring that awareness to the world more and support more healthy touch, because touch, healthy touch, pleasurable touch really creates oxytocin. I can't remember the numbers about it, but a hug more than something 30 seconds increases your oxytocin level by something. You know, there's some statistics or science research about that. And oxytocin is the love drug. That's like, it's the chemicals that our own body releases when we feel safe and held and we're having connection. Yeah.
Why do you think that became that way in the West, and especially like the U.S. and England? I'm talking about specifically because I mean in Italy they kiss on the cheek, so.
Yeah, I don't know, because the first thought I was going to say is religion, but then I thought Italians are very religious, so I don't know.
That's I don't know. I think that's a huge factor, don't you? You mentioned
Religion.
it earlier. Yeah.
Oh yeah, religion is where some of the deepest programming. Some of the people that I work with, you know, have received some of the deepest programming in the church. There's a lot of sexual abuse in the church, and that is starting to come out into the public right now, and I'm grateful for that. There's been a lot of abuse and misuse of power there.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Italy and touching. Actually, I included in some speech I did somewhere about how much there was a study done on how often people touch each other in different cultures. In Italy, so some researcher was watching people in a cafe in various countries and observed how often within one conversation of an hour, how often did they touch themselves or touch each other, and touch themselves. But in Italy, it was quite often. It was like Latin countries. It was quite often. In England or the U.S., it was like once. I can't remember. And then I brought into my speech that, but humans these days are touching their phone. Some kinds of like thousands of times a day, right? Okay, so that's, you know, for each letter perhaps, but thousands of times. So that's what we're interfacing with now more than ever is technology, and especially as we are all going on to online, which has its benefits, but also has its, you know,
drawbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it seems, yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It's just like, it's weird. It's like you go so long sometimes that you almost forget. I don't know, it might be different for girls in the US or the West, I don't know, but it's like you don't really know how to go about doing it, you know. It's like, how do I
right,
and some people don't like to be touched really at all, so
right, we don't want to be misinterpreted, and you know, with touch. And so yeah, there's some barriers and some boundaries that, you know, I like to explore that, and that's what I like doing, you know, with small groups of people, or sometimes, you know, I'm talking like 15, 20 people, you know, like where we really get together and explore this. And there's so many breakthroughs and people discovering that, you know, I really need that. And I really love to be touched. It's a medicine. Hugs are medicine. We need human contact.
do you have, like, what exercises do you do, Pyasa, and is it different for if it's a guy and a guy or a guy and a girl, or is it different based on context?
You know, I make the first thing I want to say is I make shit up in the moment, you know? So I don't know.
Well, my question is this, like, what would you say to me if, and this is actually a real question, like if I want to touch my guy friends, what do I do? Like, because like if I'm flirting with a girl, like I'll, you know, and I'm not and I'm present and I'm in the moment and I'm not thinking about my appointment later, you know, I might touch her on the elbow or the shoulder for a second. But you know, that I don't know if I did that to one of my guy friends, I'm just like, you know, I don't know how they would react.
I guess the first thing that comes, thanks for that question. The first thing that comes is really opening up the conversation, you know, so nonviolent communication, which has now been changed to compassionate communication. The whole idea of this training, I guess we could call it, this mode of or re-education around around communication is to communicate in a way that somebody else feels empathy with you. So for example, if I were you, right, I'm pretending I'm you, and I might say to my guy friend, you know what, I noticed that we really never touch, and I would like to, and I feel afraid that you might think I'm coming on to you or that you wouldn't like it, and I need to know, how could we start having a bit more touch, just like humans, right? So in that communication, you've had a statement. This is the structure of compassionate communication. You have a statement. You know, I forgot how I started that. You
I
know,
think
I
empathy
noticed,
is what you said, I think, off the bat.
yeah, or I noticed that we never touch, right? And um, and then how you feel, like I feel afraid that you might misinterpret if I touch you, and then a need, and I need to know
There's
how
not an
I.
app for this, Piazza?
There's a website that people can go to, and there are trainings
Oh
about
wow,
NVC or compassionate communication.
cool.
Yeah, that's that. I think the more that that comes into the world, the better place it's going to be, because we all need to learn how to communicate. It's difficult, and you know, it's a way that we take responsibility for our feelings. Because I could, if I were, I'm pretending I'm you, I could also say, um, you know, hey man, it seems like you don't like it when I touch you, and I want to know whatever, you know, like we end up projecting onto somebody rather than creating. So like, I don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what
Right.
he's thinking. Maybe he's kind of like, God, I noticed that guys never touch each other either, and nobody ever says anything and opens up the conversation. So nobody ever really
Yeah.
knows.
So you think
But if
talking about it is a really, really big step for
yes,
society? Yeah.
opening up communication, being vulnerable, and
Mm.
you know, feeling our vulnerability, and being courageous enough to be the one who's vulnerable is going to change other people around you. It gives them the opportunity to change. So you know, you're the courageous one if you can come out and say that, you know. And the vulnerability is around expressing my need, like
Mhm.
I feel afraid, or sorry, about the feeling, I feel afraid that you might misinterpret my intention and my need. That's also vulnerable. You know, I would like to have more touch with all humans, regardless of gender. Does that make sense to you?
It does, Piazza. Well said. And it made
Thanks.
me think of some, I don't know if you've seen this, but they have this service now. I don't know if it's in England or the US, but they like hire people to like cuddle with them.
Yes, I have a friend who is a cuddle therapist. Yes.
Whoa, really?
And
Wow.
that,
What do you
going
think
back,
about that?
I think it's a really necessary service.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, and this friend of mine was also even going into old age homes. What do they call them? Adult facilities,
Oh, like nursing homes?
and nursing homes. Yeah. And cuddling. If we think about the older people, who are they having contact with? Who are they having touch with? If you imagine going into one of these homes, you know, and especially they're coming, so they're older generation, there's going to be even more schism between men and men touching, or, you know, what. So everybody needs contact. Everybody needs this affection, physical touch, right? So I think it's a wonderful service.
Well, I just one last question. As far as the money, though, do you think that changes it at all or no? like paying for that instead of
Take money for the affection.
yeah. Does that change it at all for you?
No. Money is a form of exchange, and it's a service. And if somebody needs that, and that's the way the world is at this time, then I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I mean, I actually feel prostitution is one of the oldest professions on the planet. That
Mhm.
has always been a service to humankind. And there's very disempowered ways that has played out, and there's also more empowered. Back in the day, some of the prostitutes were actually priestesses. This was a service to men as they would go before they would go off to war. So
Wow,
I
I did
believe
not know
that,
that.
yeah, I believe that if this is a conscious choice of, the person who is providing that service, fantastic.
What
And
country was that in? That the priest or priestess, excuse me, or do you know what time period about?
I feel like I'm going to get myself into trouble if I try to answer that
Okay,
question.
no worries.
I would say for people to check out, the history of prostitution.
Hmm.
It would be very interesting. And now that I'm saying that to you, I think I'm going to do the same. I know I've read about it before. Yeah, I would kind of start to say like Roman times or something, but I think that
Hmm.
it is played out in many cultures.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we'll all be surprised if we check this out, and depending on the resources, the
Mhm.
sources that we call upon for the answer to that. So I do, and then there's of course, a situation of prostitution being out of somebody being at their ends of financial ends and knowing no other way to make. I'm not really talking about that, right?
Okay.
So, sexological body work, I want to clarify too. I was certified in the state of California. Joseph Kramer, was my mentor and my teacher, he fought and rallied, rather, I would say, rallied to get sexological bodywork legalized in the state of California. And because California is so hip, they did it. The rest of the United States does not approve or recognize this as my certification. And therefore, if I work with somebody and I am involving any kind of touch on the genitals in exchange for money, that is prostitution. So now what's happened is there's been a struggle actually with maintaining sexological bodywork as a certified profession in California. And what Joseph has done is gone all around the world, Australia, Europe, other places that are a lot more open-minded, where actually nudity is even more accepted, right? In the United States, if I just rant for a little bit,
Oh
you
no,
know,
please do, please do. I love this.
nudity, women in bathing suits, women with cars, this has been used to sell things, right? And there's so much obsession with sexuality and that kind of pornography, one of the
Mm.
biggest industries, right? There's an obsession, but there's also a tremendous repression, right? You go over to Europe, you can go in some of the parks and you can go naked. You can be in the nude. This is acceptable. So there's not as much uptightness around sexuality, and therefore sexological bodywork is allowed. And so, yeah,
Couple of
that's it.
things there.
Yeah.
Do you see a future, or what do you see in Cali, really quick, or maybe you don't see anything as far as the sexological profession goes? Are they, because there's that, like you said, that legal gray spot.
Well, it was certified. I cannot say that I have been keeping up because I've been living out of the country for the last 9 years.
For sure.
Um, so I can't answer that accurately.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Why do you think prostitution is illegal in the U.S.?
Why? Except in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, I think it's like
Why?
Nevada, right, or something.
Yeah, yeah. Why is it illegal? I don't know. Because control. I'm not
Control of
really
what
sure.
though? Because I have this theory, Piasa. Let me know what you think. I
Okay.
think I postulate that if prostitution was legal in the United States, crime would plummet. Violent crime would plummet. That is my prediction.
Hmm.
I mean, because I
Yeah,
think a lot of crime is just due to sexually frustrated men, to be honest. I don't know. What do you think?
that could be very true. Yeah, sexual repression, absolutely. There's a lot of crime from unexpressed, unsequenced trauma. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
I think that legalization of everything would lessen all the things that people don't want to happen. I mean, we see that in Portugal, all drugs, all, illegal substances are legalized. They don't have a problem with drug addiction like they do in the United States. It's like we make things, or the powers that be make things illegal and suppress it, and then there's more obsession with it. It's an interesting thing. It's taboo, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think they do it to just to make money in some way or another. But we have just reached an hour here, Piazza.
Okay.
Before we sign off,
Yes.
we actually haven't talked about coronavirus at all. Do you
Uh,
want to? Because and I know the viewers want to know too what your take is, because I've yet to talk to
mm,
anyone in Costa Rica during
hmm
the pandemic. What's it like in Costa Rica, and what are your thoughts on this pandemic as it has panned out over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 months now?
All right. I would call it a plandemic. I understand that there is a virus happening. I hear about it very distantly every now and then, but not very often. In this country, things have remained predominantly open. They cut down the buses. You could go to town a few times a day from where I've been living on the mountain. And it went to just at 6 in the morning and 6 at night or something, right? So it was cut down. A few things were shut down, but generally, it's still going. I think
Yeah.
the organic market that I like to go to, was shut down one time, and then it opened up. They have us wash our hands when we go in with some, chemical something that's, going to take down our immune system. But there is very few cases of coronavirus in Costa Rica. I do not know. I cannot claim to know what the agenda is. What I feel, okay, this is just my personal feeling, is that there is an awakening that is happening here on the planet at this time, and that it is a big distraction to put people in more fear and distract them from what the actual awakening is. I mentioned before, when you asked me, is this my only gig? I just found out about a frequency healing device. It's based on Tesla technology. It's like if Rife frequencies. This technology goes back to the 30s, right? They've been using this Rife machines. If you don't know what that is, check it out. But they've been using these to heal people of dis-ease with frequencies for many, many years. And these machines, like a Rife machine, it's a very big machine. It's very heavy. It's hard to carry around. So it's not accessible to everybody. I healed myself of Lyme disease naturally, and part of that was using a Rife machine. But I paid like $120 every session to use somebody else's machine. So my little sideline right now is selling a device that is being made in Germany. It's actually the size of your hand. It's a hardware the size of your hand. The frequencies are transmitted through your smartphone into the device, and then you can turn off your phone and wear this device and receive these frequencies. People, I have to be careful with claims. Um, it is FDA approved. It just got released into the United States to treat chronic pain, arthritis, migraines, and fibromyalgia. And there are frequencies for many, many other things, including EMF protection, because at this time of Corona, there are the powers that be are rolling out 5G everywhere. And 5G, most people don't know because they use Google, and Google is a very, what is that called when they don't allow you to get all the censored?
Censored. Yep.
It's very censored. Facebook is censored. The information, the true information of what's happening right now, and some amazing doctors and amazing scientists who are stepping up and talking about this virus and talking about 5G, you're not going to find them on that. You could use DuckDuckGo as an alternative.
That's
Brave
what I
was
use
a,
now, actually, DuckDuckGo, and you can
yeah,
put it as your search bar in the corner too of your browser.
yes. So there's an agenda. I cannot say what it is, but I do believe that the frequency of the planet is about to change. I actually feel that we are shifting gears, and we are coming alive and online as a collective. I don't remember who it was. Some enlightened guru said that the next Buddha on the planet will be the community, right? And I feel that it's not an individual. I am not waiting for the next Jesus or Mohammed or whoever it is to come. It is us. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. And I believe that the whole world, I not just believe, I understand, that this whole world is an information field. We can plug into and tap into everything. Science is proving this. And right now, what's happening is there's a coming together of science and spirituality. And so that's why I'm so excited about this device. If anybody wants to learn about it, contact me, because I feel that by increasing the frequency and the health of humanity, we have time, because we're out of pain, we're out of our own dis-ease. We have more availability to be part of this positive collective, this movement that is happening now. Check out the 100th monkey and what that is.
You
Do
said
you know the
100th monkey?
the 100th monkey? I can tell you very briefly, and then it is going to get darker in here too, so I
Okay.
won't have such good light. But
No, you're good.
so you can look up, there's a really cute, very short little cartoon of the 100th monkey that explains. So there was a scientific study, and I'm going to do my best to share the story. And then you can check it out. And if I was wrong, forgive me. But the basic information is here. Scientists were working with monkeys, I think it was, on an island in Japan. And they taught the monkeys how to wash the sand off of their potato. And then that monkey taught the next monkey how to wash the sand off of their potato. And then they all of a sudden, eventually, all of them were doing this. They were washing the sand off their potato. And then guess what happened? I don't know how long this took, but an island in another island in Japan, the monkeys started doing this. They didn't meet. They learned it in the collective field, because collective consciousness. So there was critical mass enough for these monkeys, this group, to learn it, that the other monkeys learned it. And that's what I think we are. We're like monkeys that are going to get smarter. And the more that we get it, that we've come here to be in right relationship with Pachamama, with Mother Earth, live in harmonious ways with her, then we don't have to be the virus. The virus is fear. The virus is us. We're in looking for the English word. We're not in right relationship with the earth. And so what do I think about coronavirus? We need to wake up. We need to connect. We need to stand up. We need to become sovereign. We need to look at our relationship with how we relate with the planet, and wherever we can, we need to correct that, and we need to think about, where does our water come from? Where do we have fresh water, fresh food, organic food without chemicals? The more that we create demand, the more supply there could be. We need vitamin D. People can get healthy. Go in the sun. That's vitamin D. Zinc, vitamin C in high doses, because there is a virus. It's like, because everything, again, is all levels. So the virus is fear, but it manifests on a physical level. So we're living in amazing times. And I really, really hope that we can all get out of the fear, claim our sovereignty, and come together as a humanity and recognize each other as brothers and sisters. Oh, amen. That's my word.
That was a great conclusion, Pyasa.
Thank you.
And this was Pyasa Neko Siff. the
Nico.
Nico. Okay, Nico. Oh yeah, you said your birth name was Nico, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Pyasa Neko Siff, dramatic sexologist. We should definitely chat again sometime in the future.
Thank
That'd be fun.
you. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Addy.
Yeah, thanks
Thank you.
for taking time out of your schedule to chat with me.
Yeah.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. Again, I will be putting all of Piasa's links in the description. Any that you want added, Pyasa, just let me know
I
via
will.
email.
Thank you. Yeah, great.
And stay frosty, folks. Until next time.
All right. Thank you.